here I am at the Ukrainian Credit Union here in Toronto. And welcome to Ukrainian Couple. And in this channel, we're going to talk about Ukraine, as always. I mean, the subject of the day is Ukraine, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Basically, I've been hearing a lot of this in the media, right? Those that are critical of the Western response to the war in Ukraine. Basically, those that want to separate the Ukrainian government from the Ukrainian people. Those that think that the war in Ukraine is the West's fault. I mean, there are people that think that. And there's always this sort of alarmist rhetoric about the fact that the hunger crisis in Africa is going to implode on itself. There's going to be a lot of refugees that want to move into Europe, and Europe is going to hit with a refugee crisis. But those that proclaim these things, I don't know, the people that are doing that have been rubbing me the wrong way, let's just put it that way. I mean, while there is unanimous support for Ukraine, you get these individual views by certain individuals. I mean, there are these high-profile individuals, we all know about them. I mean, people like Jordan Peterson, John Mearsheimer, Donald Trump, Henry Kissinger, Noam Chomsky, all these people, and not to mention quite a bit of politicians in Germany, France, and Italy. I mean, they're saying it in different ways, in different formats, but they're all essentially saying that Ukraine should give in, it should consider some concessions in order to give in to Putin's little desires, stop the bloodshed, and you keep hearing that quite a lot. And in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you guys why this thinking is completely delusional and completely flawed. The number one reason is that these people that I just mentioned, they're predominantly old people. I mean, should we even mention how old Kissinger and Chomsky is? I mean, they're going to hit the bucket pretty soon. Trump is pretty up there too, right? They basically all think that the Soviet Union is still some giant superpower and that it still exists in some form. I don't know why they think that way, but they kind of do. They don't really recognize that there are a number of democratically elected countries with independent, policies and stuff, with independent, foreign policies. Number two, and this is a funny one, because you have this academic theory, which is theory, that's why it's called a theory, right? Because it's not practical. This way of thinking is about thinking of countries as just pieces on a chessboard. These are chess pieces on a chessboard, and we got to get to move them around the way we want. And it's basically a way of thinking that there are still spheres of influence, and one country is subject to the other, and essentially there are buffer states, and these buffer states, their job is to prevent these two powers from clashing, blah 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 blah. I mean, if you were to think in those terms, would you call Mexico a buffer state to Guatemala? I mean, you have this South American interest and you have the American interest. Why shouldn't there be a buffer state? No, there's no buffer state, because it's a bunch of bullshit. It doesn't exist. But no, there are theories and theorists that repeat these lines, that parrot these lines. Like, for what reason are they doing it other than to appease Russia? Another thing about those guys, if you notice, Jordan Peterson, Mearsheimer, Donald Trump, do they even speak Ukrainian? Do they speak Russian? Do they even know these two languages? Are they able to relate to these people? Are they able to read the literature, understand the history, understand how Ukraine is used in Ukraine, how the Russian language also coexists with Ukraine and Russia? They don't understand any of that. And in this way, these guys are basically turning off that part of the brain. They're turning it off, and they're turning it off to history, to analytic thinking, to rational thinking. And it's just kind of sad to see that. Another thing that's wrong with it is that this survival of the fittest theory, right? If you take this theory to heart, the fact that there must be this buffer state situation, there must be this survival of the fittest, the stronger country must win, essentially, right? And I mean, that may work for rabbits and stuff, but it doesn't work for countries. I mean, let's be honest. So if it's survival of the fittest, is genocide okay? Is rape okay? Is killing everybody okay? It doesn't really matter if you're the strongest one. You must swallow up the countries that are next to you, and it's all fun and dandy. I don't think so. Doesn't sound right whatsoever. And I bet you a middle school kid will tell you that it's not right. And you don't need a PhD academic or some freaking policy expert to explain that to you, right? I mean, if that's not appalling purely on moral grounds, then why not do away with the concepts of nations completely? It makes no sense to have separate countries, nations, cultures, people. Let's just have a one world government where one government will, power over everybody else. It will set its own laws, and everybody just has to put aside their differences, put aside their real desires, and let's just like live under one world government, right? And the number 3 thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way is that these individuals that I just mentioned, they don't really care about what Ukraine wants, what Ukrainian people want. Anyway, whatever these guys may say, in the end, Ukraine doesn't really care about what these realists think about their country. I mean, they're sitting somewhere in the US, in a think tank, in DC, like in Canada somewhere, I don't know, and they're like all, they act like know-it-alls. Like they know exactly what every individual person in Ukraine wants, right? Like Ukrainians have long realized that losing soldiers' lives, losing their captives, if that even comes to it, although horrible and appalling and it's an unbearable thing, caring about their material possessions like houses, businesses, their cars, is completely irrelevant to them. These people they think that the war should be stopped because of all the destruction, of all the houses that are being bombed. Well, guess what? Think that it is worth it to sacrifice all of that in order to live in a free country. I mean, they just cannot understand that you cannot force a country of 40 million people into thinking like you, behaving like you, about what to do, what language to speak, what culture to accept, what alliances to form with other governments, who to have trade relations with. I mean, I can't believe I have to explain this to these thinkers, to these people who should be smart enough to understand these things. The problem is that Russia set itself on a course where they can't really turn back from. They've set themselves on a course, what I like to call victimization. It's a course of righting historical wrongs. Like their history is wrong, we have to rewrite it. We have to create a new history. And what they give to the Russian people is violence and hate. Violence and hate, that's all that they can feed them, with nothing else to offer them. And Putin knows that while he's in power, nobody will talk to him, everybody will treat him as a person non grata, and that's the right thing to do. And what these thinkers, I suppose, are saying is that we should change that. I mean, for Ukraine it means a long war, but for Russia it means a protracted conflict that will last for God knows what. And the people that believe in empires, Chomsky, Mersheimer, Jordan Peterson, Trump, all of these people, I mean, to them it will validate the arguments if Putin wins. Like I said, I'm going to repeat myself, but it does strike me very unusual that these people are all intellectual. They obviously know about history. They know about Nazi Germany. I mean, hell, some of them lived through it. Even many have seen the destruction, the result of the Nazi Germany, and they know what it leads to. And they simply cannot see the connection between the Nazi Germany and modern day Russia. I will leave it with this. There was a 15-year gap between Imperial Germany or the German Empire and the rise of Hitler. And there's also a 15-year gap between the collapse of the Soviet Union and around 2007, 2008, when Russia had this revanchism, this rebirth of Russian nationalism, when Putin's first presidential election, the first legally held presidential term, expired. Another ironic thing is that all these theorists, quote unquote, they're all American. So I have one question for them. How would they feel if I told them that America is not allowed to exist, America is not allowed to have its own culture, all the teachers that teach elementary school, high school, they have to be deported out of here, and children have to be re-educated to a new idea of what America is. No more English. Oh, we're gonna create our own language. We're gonna start using our own currency because American currency doesn't really work. We are going to say cities are called something else, streets are called something else. We're gonna get rid of the monuments. And you know what? We're gonna say, Americans, you're called something else. And I wonder what these guys would tell me to that. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this little video out of wonderful Toronto, Canada, the suburbs of Toronto, Canada, where I like to hang out. Anyway, guys, peace. Until next time.